while our generation came with quite a lot of privilege, we also have been, this internet age has so much noise. I can literally Google two opposite sentences saying you should only follow one thing in your career, and you will have 100 articles that support that. You're bombarded with influencers, with ads, with just so much content out there. There's this need to make sense of all that information, and that's what I work with a lot of these young women with. I think with anyone it's different, with your parents or even with your friends. I think you need sometimes that outside,
Yeah.
external, completely non-biased, non-judgmental space. And I think that's what youngsters are dealing with, trying to figure out what do they want, and especially when they're thrown with information on top of that saying they should already know what they want.
There is nothing better to get somebody, which I call it a woman for woman kind of a platform, because I know that this next guest who's on the other side with me works very, very deeply with women at such a young age. And I'm very intrigued because I didn't have this sense of, how I need to impact other people, or especially women, with my work. So welcome, Krusha Sahjwani Malkani. I hope
Very long name, I know.
no, but thank you for using all the your maiden name, and I'm sure your married name now together. And as I have seen you on LinkedIn, of course, because you're LinkedIn top voice of last year, and I also see a lot of work, your voice, which depicts everything that you want to tell women about how they need to be empowered and how we can all manage a very joyful life with all the little things that we do together to make it a multitasking woman. So definitely, I'm very excited to talk to you. And more than anything, you are also coaching them, so through your venture. You are also the director for Sociable. You can talk more about it when we get on. What is that company doing? And you've also authored a book. So I mean, very multidimensional at a very young age. Krusha, I'm very excited to meet you today because this is a Second Act podcast. And Second Act is literally like when I asked you what's your second act, you said, you know what, it's something which is different for different people, and I would like to leave it at that. And we will come to this question a bit later. But welcome, thank you for taking out this time. I know you have a little baby, so congratulations for just being a new mother. But however, being so aware of what you still need to do and empower other people around you. So I'll stop talking now and I'll give.
No, thank you so much. It's always so strange to listen to your about yourself from another person at a stretch, but my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, Krusha. So tell me a little bit about, let's start with your coaching journey, because I think this is something very exciting for me as well. That, when young girls like you get into coaching other women, I feel, okay, where do you get so much deep experience of knowing how so if I would want to be coached by you, I'm sure that I will have a great experience as well. But it involves a lot of deep learning. I wasn't so aware at such a young age. So tell me a little bit about this journey.
Sure. I think firstly that's a great question. And for me, it brings me to two things that immediately came to mind. So one, from a very young age, when you're always deciding what do you want to do, what do you want to do next, a lot of people actually many times through my journey told me, I think you should become a therapist or you should do therapy. It came up again and again, but I never took it seriously because I think something about it didn't sit well with me, where I didn't feel I would be able to do it complete justice or enjoy it to the fullest. I didn't at that point know coaching existed. But when I actually stumbled upon what coaching is to get certified and how it's future focused, and you still hold space for someone, but it's very focused on goals and different from therapy. And that's where, that bulb goes, and I was like, okay, this is it, this would work. So I think
Wow.
one part was that. And then the other part was the difference between mentoring and coaching. So, mentoring, I do still feel you need to go to someone who's walked the path you have, or, is a few steps ahead of you in pretty much exactly the same domain or journey that you're about to take so that you get direct advice. But that's not what coaching was. And again, that's what I loved about it. you had to just learn the art of holding space for someone, asking the right questions, partnering with them, and you're never actually supposed to give them direct advice. Which is why I think it's easier to then, as long as you can learn how to do that, coach people regardless of, age, background, where they are in their journey. And yeah, that's what I think I loved about it.
So nice to know. But can we go a little bit back on your childhood to this whole, I think the domain that you handle now with women, what helped you to come to this path and especially choose this path?
Hmm. I think I feel it came from my mom. Because my parents got divorced when I was 15. And I always say that I was really lucky that I had an experience and something my mom taught me, which I'll talk about, to give me this purpose without too much of the pain. Because I still have my father in my life. I grew up with my grandparents, my cousins, and I wasn't ever, I feel like I wasn't robbed of my childhood in any way. But at the same time, I saw my mother, who was obviously at that time, very few women were working. And even she was pretty much, her life was around me and my brother. And then she had started giving tuitions a little bit here and there when we were growing up. And then her life changed 360 degrees when I was 15. And I was old enough, I think, to really watch her transform
Yeah.
into, I think, the first thing we did when my parents got divorced and I finished my boards, it was kind of at the same time, and we took a trip to Hong Kong, and that was my first international trip. Actually, I'd only traveled domestically, and my mother, my brother, and I did this. And for me, I didn't make complete sense of it at that time, but I think it had started to seep into what I was seeing. And then I saw her completely, she didn't touch, for example, the secure money in the bank that was given to her for us. And she started, just amplifying her tuitions and working more, and while still always somehow being there for us. And I think that whole thing, and seeing her come into her own while still putting her own happiness. She has a friend circle she takes, trips with. So it didn't even look like, oh my God, a big sacrifice. She didn't ever package it that way. So I
Hmm.
think all of those things somehow seeped in, and that for me was like, women can have it all. I think it was like deeply sunk into, if that circumstance and she could still do it all, then why not?
Yeah. I think the earlier that women realize that, the only person who can empower themselves is them. I think that is something I think gives them all the power to just take off a journey which is a step forward in anything that they want to do. And I experience this through my work all the time because I coach also a lot of women. But I think because the company that I hold is Second Act, I attract a lot of women struggling in their second acts of life. And which is
Which is
generally
such a
when
lovely concept.
yeah, it's really that when women have done their first act of life, which is more about marriage, responsibilities, kids, and then you literally stand at a place where you say, okay, now what about me? Where do I stand? What
Yeah.
have I done? What about me? So I think you are starting at a great point where you already work on. I'm sure that a lot of younger women then get attracted to you, to say young mothers, because you talk a lot about handling life both ways, managing work-life balance, as they say, or also being aware of all the challenges that as a young parent or as a young girl handling responsibilities might be having. So it's really interesting to know, but at the same time, when the generation, which is still a young generation like you, is so anti-marriage, I would say, or they want to be in a relationship, but they don't want to formalize it, and kids is a big no. At least the young people I know, kids is a big no. How does that fall in place for you?
Yeah, I think the good thing is, in a way, you see definitions of all sorts today, because I feel like people are taking the time to create their own definitions and actually thinking about what do they want, whereas a lot of people earlier maybe were not even given the opportunity or the privilege to do that, because there was sort of a written way of things, the way it was done, and everyone followed suit for good or bad. that the verdict's still out on that, but I think for good or bad. For me, again, I've got this question before also because, like I said, I did see a marriage fall apart. I did see all these things happen. But somehow I was the diehard romantic. I still am. I believed in this concept of love very strongly. And so I really think what you believe in, you manifest at some level because that's what your actions will follow. So and I was always very career oriented. So I got married very early. I turned 26 in Jan, and in Feb I got married that year. And all my friends and everyone was really surprised when I got engaged the year before. And it was a love marriage and it just happened. And everyone was surprised. They didn't think I would be one of the first few people that had want, to get married. And again, I'm the first one in my friend circle to have a baby this year. And I think I was very sure that I wanted a baby. So every year I got closer to it. And I think last year I felt like it was just time. I just wanted it. I knew I wanted it. And so it happened. So I think for me, it was never, I was not on that side of the no marriage, no kids. Maybe no second kid so far is what I because it is an expensive world out there. Uh, but yeah, this was never a question for me somehow.
And so, what is motherhood doing to you right now?
Oh, so much. It's probably, I think I love studying. I love learning. As you can see, I love doing many different things. But motherhood, I think, is one of those things that teaches you quickest and the most. So every day, every week, I feel like there's so much that you learn. I also, there's this concept called matrescence. I learned about it, I think, maybe 2 years ago. It's very similar to adolescence, but it's just not known as much and not given as much credit because
Mm,
only mothers go
sure.
through it. So of course, but uh, it is this whole thing that actually you go through a transformation and not just biologically, but everything changes. And that's why when I work with new mothers also, it's just first validating that it's normal that your values or your beliefs or behaviors, everything is changed. And ignoring it or just saying that you need to bounce back, taking, I think, your career back, I don't even say back, but just taking your career forward, uh, is not about just bouncing back to go to the old version that you are. So I think even when I entered motherhood, I went in with the mindset that this is going to change me. Things are going to change, and that's okay. I'm not going to fight it to say I want to weigh exactly the same as I did before. I want to be doing exactly the same hours or exactly the same work. I was very open to the fact that this is going to change me, and but I just believe that it's going to change me for the better and propel me even more forward. Just maybe the direction and the way it goes changes. So I feel I'm in the beginning of that transformation right now.
Great. So, but if of course, the younger girls who are now getting probably coached by you or just reach out to you for an advice, what is that advice that you want to give the younger girls of today?
So my favorite thing about coaching is I don't advise. I help partner for them to find their goals. But I'd say definitely, it's easy to say. One, maybe before you approach motherhood today, uh, I don't think you can have all the answers, but at least having a base and knowing a fair enough direction of where you want to go helps, because this is probably already going to be overwhelmed. So it's not maybe the best time to have to figure out everything from scratch. So having a base helps in some way. And the second is a support system. So I think I talk with a lot of privilege when I say I'm able to do this in the day, or I'm able to do that, or even able to have this conversation with you right now. I feel knowing your support system, if you have it, or creating one if you don't have
Yes.
the regular looking support system, is so important. I live with my in-laws. I have a husband who is as equal a parent as possible biologically. And he remote work as well, goes into office twice a week. That's it. It's very hands-on. My mom lives just two buildings away. I can afford to pay for a nanny. So this is a lot of privilege, a lot of different things that make this possible. So I'd say those are the two advice pieces that I would maybe give out if I had to give advice.
No, really, I really admire that you acknowledge this as well, because sometimes we are so entitled, we just forget that this is a privilege. We are very entitled that many points in our life. And yeah, I'm glad that you bring it up. And also that you are also the norm of today is not to stay so much with parents, and you still stay close to your parents and your
I
parents.
couldn't do it without any of them, honestly. So it works both ways.
Yeah, interesting, because I think our generation is now saying, okay, I want to get away, I want a life which is like my own. So, I
Which
think
is, I think it's very subjective, right? Which is why also I say I don't really give direct advice ever in coaching. Also, it's just, understand their environment and then help them figure what they want and the path that works for them. Because it's very personality driven, it's very circumstance driven. Like you can put maybe another person with a different personality exactly in my situation, but they might want different things, right? And vice versa. But yeah, for me, I don't think, at least at this point in my life, I could function without either my mother or my mother-in-law. I'm very grateful to both.
very nice. Very nice to hear. Okay, so if I again bring it into perspective, that I coach a lot of women in the middle age, in the late 30s, early 40s until 50s, and a bit later
Mhm.
as well. What is your target group mostly?
So it's usually a mix, but yes, I do tend to work maybe mostly with women between the age of 25 to 40. Usually, that's the age group that I work most with, sometimes even younger. Usually not so much older, I'd say 40s range, unless they are coming for something specific that is new goal career oriented. They want a different perspective. Sometimes it does happen, but my typical clientele is between 25 to 40
And
who
what
are
are
either
the
just starting out work. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just asking, so what are the major concerns they come to you with?
Mm,
What are they struggling today?
with the younger women, we've been while of course we've come with a lot of privilege compared to the past generation, right? So I do acknowledge that there's a lot of privilege, but there's also, we are kind of in, I see so many women where we are sold to narratives, right? There's this whole, you should focus on your career, you need to be in, you need to be completely individualistic, you need to have your own goals, while at the same time you should get married before 30 and you should have a baby and you should do all of this, and then you're trying to now do both. So actually you're not, we're doing two jobs in one. So
Absolutely.
yes, you don't want to go backwards and go back to where you didn't have a career, but you also don't want to, I hated this concept of having it all while being completely burnt out and unhappy, right? That's not a formula that works. So I see this a lot where either people are, lost finding their purpose, and that's definitely one area that I work with. But also there's an area where people are saying, oh, I don't know what I want anymore because I've been told I want this and I've also been told I want this,
So
and
true.
maybe I want both, but then I'm burnt out. So how do I make this work while I'm still happy? Because what's the point of it all if you're just not happy at the end of the day?
So, what are the things that you are doing not to get burnt out yourself?
I think I made consciously a lot of pre-changes also. So for example, I work with social in my day job for a very long time. I brought the company to India. It was a lot of work that time, of course, setting it up. And while I did pretty much every different function, I did a lot of sales. And sales is very, very demanding, obviously. And especially with a new company here, because if I didn't sell, basically the company would stop, right? So it was literally directed that much into making sure I sell.
Right.
And I built it over the years and I built a team. But last year, before I even decided to, have a baby, I consciously knew that I needed to slowly move out of a sales role for a bit and have someone else take over sales where I could manage more and get, help the company expand in more markets, because that was less time sensitive also. So I knew I could bring the value without my hours being tied to it and all of that. So I think that's a conversation I had before I decided to have a baby. And then it took me, I worked through my pregnancy still in sales and this transition and training, new people until December. So I conceived on 1st March, and December and I was in the sales role and moved out. So I think that was one thing that now, even though I'm going back full time to work in 3 weeks, I know I would be a lot more stressed if I was going back into a full-fledged sales role. So that was one thing I consciously did. And yes, it meant giving up a sales bonus, for example, or things like that. But it just overall made so much sense to me that that's one big thing I did. So similar, a few career decisions that happened across. Support system for sure. My health. So I was focused on my health even during pregnancy to make sure I worked out, I ate right. And of course, some things are not in your hands, but touch wood, it worked out, and I'm able to feel healthy again for the most part. So I still would prioritize that. You have to wake up, your sleep is completely gone, obviously, once you have a baby. So just making sure that while I was on leave, I did get my sleep. I'm waking up, but I'm making sure I make up for that 1 hour somewhere. So yeah, those small things, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for that. But do you do any kind of breath work, yoga,
Mm,
meditation, something like that as well?
I would be lying if I say I meditate regularly because I've always attempted to do it, but somehow it's never become a practice. But I do yoga. So my workout is always yoga, even throughout pregnancy, which has the breath work, so it's that time of the day that I completely. I do take deep breaths whenever, if I'm even feeling a little overwhelmed, I'll do it. So it's not like a meditation practice that I'll sit down and do, but I will do breath work and it always helps me. Journaling helps me. So if I ever feel like anything is collected and now I need to, just put it on paper, that really helps me. So I do that. I don't have a fixed time again. I don't have a fixed frequency, but I can tell when I need to do it, and then I'll just sit down and dump everything on paper.
So you have a full-time job. You are a certified coach, and you're a LinkedIn top voice. Of course, last year, but still, I can see that you're very active on LinkedIn. So how are you managing everything with your new baby and still keeping up with it? What's the magic?
I think again, right, when people see this, you're not doing everything every day, because it's easy to believe that, oh, how is she doing that and I can't. I'm not doing everything every day. I'm definitely not superhuman, and I to need my sleep also, and I need my food without distraction also. So I think there's a base. So LinkedIn started a long time ago. Now I'm maintaining it. And writing comes easily to me, touchwood. My videos, if you see that I put up on LinkedIn, are very unedited. I don't spend any time editing my videos. So they're very raw. They just have automated captions that come on, and that's my best that I can do right now. So I'm not even pushing myself to edit videos. So that's my line. I want to put out good content there. I'm lucky that it's being embraced, but I don't have the time to spend 1 hour to edit videos. So I won't do that. What goes out in the content as well, I have, my content is very observational. It's also very, what I love reading, I do all these things. So every time there's a thought or I've read something, I put it on my phone in my notes. So when I actually sit to make content, it's quite quick to schedule, and then it's scheduled. So again, I'm not coming on every day and putting out content at that time. It's done. So that's the example of the content. The book is something I wrote before, right? I wrote it during COVID, in fact. And now again, I'm just not really doing much about it at all. It's just going out there. When I have something to say about it, or there's a small marketing opportunity somewhere, then I take it up, but it's very infrequent at the moment. Then there is my day job, which of course will take most of my time, which will start now. And there's coaching where I'm very clear on the number of clients I can take up right now. So I do no paid marketing. The leads I get right now, touchwood, are all organic and word of mouth and retainer. And I'm okay with that right now. I'm letting it grow at a pace that works for me. So I'm not pushing the acceleration of I need to make this revenue or these many clients in coaching within the next 2 months or 3 months. I'm okay with the pace it's going at. So that's also what happens with, I always say, with multi-passionate professionals, that is the I'd say what you give in exchange. You're not accelerating at the same pace, but that's a choice I'm making.
Very nice. I think these are very useful tips as well, because I think we are all wanting to do many, many things. And like you said, it seems like, okay, how is she managing and I'm not? And then you get into the mode that I'll never be there. So let me not even try.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It is about that you don't have to focus on everything at that point in time. How do you manage your time? How do you manage that content coming out at what time? And I think focusing on the quality rather than, like saying edit
Yes.
ekdam aisa hona chahiye, I must put this out with some fancy, like a background or whatever. So, I mean, that's not required sometimes. And I totally believe in it as well. So I keep telling my team as well that I want to focus on speaking things which are relevant. I really want to touch some people's lives and impact
Exactly.
them. And I think if that's happening, we don't have to keep like, the mask on of like saying, how do I look and how do I, create
Yeah.
paraphernalia around it, So,
Yeah, how do I look is a whole other exactly. I will never even now in the whether this is the podcast or when I create my videos, I'm just, I'm not going to get into and again, this is each to their own, if putting on makeup makes you feel good
yeah.
and you need that to great. For me, I don't have the time for it because I was also never into it. So now just for this to get into it, for engagement or things like that, I would not do it. So again, that saves me a lot of time because it was like I was with my baby till 2 minutes before I had to come
Yeah.
join this podcast.
Yeah, so true. And I think this is exactly what I have been struggling with in the beginning. And I will be very honest with it. When I came on, so many of my peers and all said, you don't do enough. You're a, influencer now. You should look in a certain way. And I said, but then this is me. And if
Yeah,
somebody relates to me with the way that, I speak to them or the way that I bring in the content, I think that is doing it. And I don't have to
exactly.
put
And we
on
keep
any.
saying personal brands need to be authentic. So then this is authentic. You have to take it then.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book then. What is your book all about, and why did you think there was a need to author it?
The book is actually completely different from anything I do. So it's not non-fiction, it's a fiction book.
Wow.
I love writing. So I think, while I do multiple things, the one thing that's always stayed with me is writing. I have been writing since I was a kid, in school, whether it was, essay writing or whether it was then writing texts for my friends, for their boyfriends, or whatever it was, I was always writing. And then I slowly, started. I remember when I was staying in Paris for work, and I was living alone. So that's when I started submitting to blogs, and it all got picked up. And I said, okay, maybe I can write more. I
Nice.
never, for some reason, maybe because at least in our time when we were, learning, I mean, choosing what we wanted to do, arts was never seen as an option for a good student. If you got a 90 plus, you have to
Mhm.
do science, and if I was anyway not doing science, you had to at least do commerce. So I never saw writing as a career, but I would write. Then I started writing these short stories, contests everywhere I used to see. I submitted and won something with Penguin, then did something with Harper's, and slowly it started growing. And then COVID hit, and obviously we were all in our houses and had a lot more time somehow on our hands, and I didn't have a baby yet also. So we were home, and I always, of course, had this in my mind that if you asked me as a kid, what did you want to be? I would say author. And but
Nice.
somehow I never got to actually executing what being an author is. So I said, if I don't write now, then I'm never going to write because now I literally have all the time in the world, all the peace and quiet. I should be writing now. And so I said, okay, and I started thinking of characters, stories, and that's how it happened. And within 3 months, I kind of wrote the draft, and then obviously got it reviewed. I had no idea how to publish or what that whole thing market looks like. So that took me a while to learn until I found publishers and all of that. That happened last year.
So nice. And I'm hoping that one day I can learn from you how to write a book. Maybe you are taking classes for that. Who knows for when? I'll keep looking out. So tell me, one thing I want to ask is that because I know that I'm handling younger kids at home. My son's 25, my daughter's 22, and I'm an older mother, but I'm sure the challenges of being a mother you will get to know soon, and I wish you all the best. But having grown up children and also seeing this generation, I feel there is a lot of complexity that I can see, a lot of choices, one, because they have a lot to say, okay, I pick this and I don't pick this. Also, the tenacity to go through everything.
Yeah.
I feel that the way that we were pushed, because there is always this thing of falling back in the comfort zone, and somebody who's holding your back is there.
Mm.
I think the tenacity to go through it is not as much. At the same time, there's also hard conversations can't happen anymore. I can see it at home as well, that you cannot just say you can't do this. You always have to rationalize, and you have to make a conversation which seems very empathetic and understanding. So I can see the generation is a lot different than how we were. You belong to literally the same generation, and I'm sure that a lot of, that's why I keep asking you, what are the younger girls feeling, what is the younger generation
Yeah.
feeling, and what is your advice to them at this point?
Yeah, I think that's a great question in a lot of ways. So one, because yes, I've just become a mother, but I can also tell that already probably we feel now that we have it all figured out in a new way, but 100% it's going to completely change in the next few years, and we'll be
Yes.
repeating this process, right? Um, but I'd say I work with a lot of between, say, even the age of 20 to 30. A lot of my clientele is between 20 to 30. And that's by itself saying something, because, you would ask usually people in their 20s, why do you need a therapist, or why are you going to coaching right now? You've just started your career, first figure things out, learn something. Then there's a constant dialogue that you would hear from a lot of people for good reason, because that's been their journey.
Mhm.
But there's so much noise in today's world. What we don't realize is, while our generation came with quite a lot of privilege, we also have been, this internet age has so much noise. I always say, literally Google anything and you'll be validated for it. So I can literally Google two opposite sentences saying you should only, follow one thing in your career, and only one, stick to one stream, and you will have 100 articles that support that. And I say you should always diversify in more than one stream, and you will have 100 articles for
Yeah.
that, right? So, and we are consuming this information even without searching for it. So when we search for it, it's a different thing. But even without that, you're bombarded with influencers, with ads, with just so much content out there. Movie stories, books, everywhere, right? So I think there's this need to make sense of all that information, and that's where that's what I work with a lot of these young women with. Also, is that we sit down and say, okay, they it's so hard for them to create, they have that space where they take a moment and say, okay, but what do I want, what does that mean? uh Someone will come and immediately they'll be like, oh, I want to, do YouTube, or I want to make this much, or I don't ever want to get married, or absolutely anything. But then we have to break that down and say, but what does that really mean? Where did it come from? Do you really want to do this? What is that? And once we have that awareness of, okay, this is actually your goal, then we partner together and create an action plan. And again, there they feel heard because they have a partner now that they can share. you know I think with anyone, it's a very already a tough pill, I think, for me to swallow. But I think with anyone, it's different with your parents or even with your friends. I think you need sometimes that outside,
Yeah.
external,
Yeah.
completely non-biased, non-judgmental space. And I think that's what youngsters are dealing with, trying to figure out what do they want. And especially when they're thrown with information on top of that, saying they should already know what they want. They should be making six-figure incomes at 21. They should have multiple sources of income by 28, or they should be an influence. There's so much noise,
Yeah.
they just have to make sense of that noise, so it's a lot.
Yeah, so yeah, I know that what you're saying is that, of course, in the midst of the chaos, you're trying to create some sensible moments. But at the same time, like you said, there is so much available. Sometimes I wonder,
Mm,
how do you stop that clutter of
mm.
information? I'm very lucky that both my children are not social media children in a way. I have never
That's very
seen them
rare. Yeah.
on apps. They hardly are. I'm the one who's always on LinkedIn, always on Insta, always making reels. They are just not there. Both my kids are just not there. And I'm like very blessed
Wow.
to have, but I can see
Yeah.
the kids just scrolling all the time, and like, they're always I mean, engaged, and not anybody's fault,
Yeah.
because there is so much to consume, what to do. But the same thing I also now see with what LinkedIn is doing. It's trying to create LinkedIn top voices, trying to create
Mm.
accelerators, creating niche in some platforms. So
Yeah.
I feel myself that, one day if I don't post, I feel, oh my God, my impressions are going down. And I'm
Mm.
feeling like, okay, I'm losing out. So I'm sure that this is exactly in every field. How is it for you
Yeah.
to be a LinkedIn top voice? How did you reach here? And Is it important, firstly? And secondly, how, how does it really help?
I think so. I never knew even what the LinkedIn top voice categories were, or, things like that when I became a top voice. Very honestly, I didn't plan for it. The true thing that happened was, as I said, I'm a writer. I love writing. I used to write on Instagram, and it was doing really well, touch wood, especially during the COVID time, like just before when COVID had started. It's when it picked up even more. And
Hmm.
then Reels were introduced to Instagram, and
Right.
that was not my scene.
Right.
I wanted to write. I didn't want to create reels. It was just not making sense for me. And that's when I discovered LinkedIn. As in, I was obviously already on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn was not a creator platform yet. But what COVID did was it made content that I thought was only suitable for Instagram okay to be shared to LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And LinkedIn really said text is great. So I was like, okay, this is my new platform. And so I started sharing, and I was already into what LinkedIn content creation is, because at Sociable, we are an internal communication and employee advocacy platform where we work with companies to help them get their employees active on social media. So I was already into how that worked in terms of the practical sense of it. I started creating this content. It really picked up. I think also the amount of engagement LinkedIn had during COVID was very high. So I kind of happened to ride that wave. And I used to speak my mind because I didn't have any agenda on LinkedIn. It was just people willing to hear what I had to say in text without effort, with just a thought. And a lot of what I had to say ended up being in the gender equity space unintentionally. It was just that a lot of my thoughts were those thoughts. So I put it out there. And
Nice.
that's when LinkedIn Top Voice and gender equity happened. And obviously, it was such a surprise, and it was great. So I'd say it was unplanned for, but after it's come, 100% has it made a difference? Yes, because after that, I was introduced to LinkedIn Creator Accelerator, which not only paid you a little for content creation, but also introduced me to this whole world of creators who I'm still in touch with, and also the creator economy as such. I didn't even call myself a creator, honestly, until then. That was the first time last year that I acknowledged that, okay, I'm a creator, and this is a thing, this is a career. Creator economy exists and it's growing. But it has my coaching also, touchwood. Like I said, I'm not doing any paid marketing, etc. I take limited clients so far, and all of it comes organically because of LinkedIn for me. One of the biggest sources is LinkedIn right now for me.
Nice.
And then, of course, women clubs like Leap Club and these places. But a lot of it comes from LinkedIn, and that was thanks to, I'd say, the top voice. But as you said in the beginning of this question, which was, the engagement going up and down, I'd say I won't lie and say I don't care, because obviously, my coaching comes from it, and I enjoy writing. And if it's completely unseen, that would bother me. But I don't see my stats as often as a creator should. I say no to a lot of things if I have to, because again, I'm very mindful of the fact that if I want to do these five things, it's not because I'm superhuman and because I don't sleep, but it's because I like to do these five things, which means
Yeah.
I can't do 100% of everything all the time. I'd rather do part of it, but give my 100% to it.
Nice. This is encouraging. At the same time, I'm also watching every time that I put a post to say, okay, is anybody commenting? In the first few minutes, if nobody's commented, I say, oh my goodness, my post has not. So, okay, Krusha, this is a second act podcast, and this question has to be, of course, the center of everything. What you understand of second act, and what's your second act?
Firstly, I have to say I love the name, and I was so intrigued when I discovered your profile and saw the interviews you were doing, because it's such a cool name. For me, second act, what came to my mind was I love that now it's not just that you get two acts, right? Anymore. Because, like I said, our generation is starting coaching, starting these decisions, all of this so quickly, because things are changing so rapidly, that you probably get multiple acts. And that for me was the first thing that came. Because you asked me this question right now at this phase, my second act right now came to me as, of course, motherhood and everything that comes in my life, career, everything from this point. Because, of course, it is maybe the most pivotal change you go through. It is a complete transformation of everything. But I'm excited about seeing how it's going to be challenging. I'm 100% sure it already is, but I'm excited to navigate and see what that would look like. So that's my second
Yeah.
act right now.
Very nice. That's a great answer, and I wish you all the best. I don't want to scare you. At the same time, I don't want to tell you everything's going to be fine.
Everything's just going to be. I'm just going to make the
Yes.
most of it.
I think that's the right attitude. Just let it be and then just be yourself and try to do whatever you can to the maximum you can. All right. So,
If I realize the other side of it, I will call you at that point and ask you how you've done the 25 years.
I'm struggling with reinventing myself as mother at every point. So that's my second act too, of like, trying to
I
say,
think it's a
oh,
continuous second act.
it's a continuous second act. So yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So now we have some rapid fire questions where
Oh, okay. Wow.
okay, all right. So, it's just to get you to know you a little bit better. That's all. All right.
Mhm.
So you talk a lot about creating joy. So what is joy for you?
Small moments.
There is one, of course, because you're a writer. There could be some topics that you're fondly writing about, or something. So what is that favorite thing that you always want to write about?
It's more than one word, but life. My friends always tease me saying, we'll have a conversation or you'll see something today and tomorrow you'll write about it. So
Great. So what is life for you?
life for me is love. If I had to first word that came to my mind, I think is love.
And what is
Love
love
the
for
work you do, love
you?
the people. Yeah, love the work you do, love the people you have in your life. Yeah, love the food you eat, love the places you are at and the places you visit. As long as I think you have love around, that's good. That's life.
What's the famous quotation of love or a famous book that you always think about when you think of love?
Wow. For someone who reads so many books, nothing is coming to my mind.
Yeah, this is the new motherhood which is doing to you.
Yeah, it's blanked
Talk.
out because currently all my reads have been parenting books.
I can
So
so
I'm trying
imagine.
to think. I really can't think of a quote or yeah, I
You want to
can't
make
think
up
of
a
a
quote
quote
since
right
you write
now.
so much, something about love, which is like coming to you right now.
I think I love. I'd say love is easy. That's the first thing that's coming to me.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Because I think it comes up in a lot of my sessions also and in life for me also. I think if you have to push really hard for something, and though our Bollywood movies have taught us that's what love looks like, in fact, I think love is easy.
Nice.
Comes easily with the people, it comes easily with the work. You want to do more of it. So that's love.
One advice your mother has always given you, which you love.
So much, but I think the biggest one she has given me is there's always a silver lining. So it doesn't end. Like I've always seen her. I don't know the exact words for it, but basically, no matter how bad something gets, she lets you feel your feelings, but she's always able to see what next, or what's good about this. Can be irritating sometimes. I think I'm becoming that person, but that's probably the thing that helped me the most.
Very nice. So, who's your woman role model?
I think my mother for sure.
Very nice to hear that. Your mother will be feeling so like,
Yeah,
I can.
I think I have to say though, with a pinch of salt, when I say my mother is my role model, it doesn't mean like I want to be exactly her, because of course I think she lived a very different life, and still have very different personalities and some similarities, but she's definitely my role model because she's the grounding factor that has made me do everything I do today. So yeah, it's just inspiring.
Nice. So, what's next for you?
This is next. Navigating motherhood and everything that comes with it around is what's next for me.
Very nice. And one last thing that you want to leave us with.
I think the last thing, especially because we are on a podcast and we've spoken so much about creator economy and multi-passionate incomes, and I
Yes.
think a lot of people will hear what I've said also. I just want to say comparison really is a thief of joy. We don't know anybody's complete story. So I think just focus on your own story, write the one you want to write, take the help you need to write it, and enjoy it, because there's no point in comparison. We're never going to know actually what you're comparing anyway.
I think that's a beautiful advice. And thank you for sharing that, because I think this is what probably I wanted to hear today. Never know who wanted to hear this today as well.
I hope so. And that's always my last thought also, because I'm saying all these things, because I'm asked what you're doing and what is this. I hope you don't leave feeling like, oh, but I can't do all this, or I'm not in that place. I just hope you know that you get to write your own journey, and whatever it is good. You write it. That's it. I hope I don't cause any, that feeling of comparison. I feel like there enough of it outside.
No, not at all. And you clarified as well, and you left us with the good advice. So thank you for joining. I know that this is something that I've always wanted to do with you. Thank you for taking out time. I wish you really all the best. You are inspiring, and stay like that. And smile a lot like you do, and keep your simplicity yet authenticity intact. And yeah, I really
That's
felt
so
nice to
sweet.
have you on the podcast.
Thank you. I love chatting with you. It was honestly very organic.
Yes, thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you.
So, this is yet another incredible episode of Discover Your Second Act. I'm hoping that, as me, you are feeling very, very excited, enthusiastic, and learned about all the nuggets that came out. So, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and of course, until next time, keep discovering your second